So today I'm going to start with an idea of like using Claude Code as a way to prototype all sorts of ideas you have. But we're going to specifically look at the idea of prototyping in agents. Just a raise of hands, how many of you use like Cursor or Claude Code or any of those tools, right? Okay, so then you're familiar with agents and how powerful they can be, right? They're really super powerful. Cursor, Codex, all of those agents within there are like extremely powerful, and it's a way that you can actually see whether or not an agent can do what you're trying to get it to do without writing any code. So it's a great like environment for R&D. But before I get there, I kind of need to take you through a little bit of a journey and introduce you to my friend. And his name is Riley, right? He's incredibly smart. He has a photographic memory. He speaks multiple different languages. We spend hours talking to the extent that my wife gets worried that I have more relationship with him than I do with her. And he's become a good friend of mine, right? But he has a problem, right? He tends to make things up, but not from a place that is bad. It's just that he doesn't understand when something goes wrong. He apologizes when he makes a mistake, and he always thinks my ideas are the best in the world. So for example, the other day I was like, Riley, I've got this idea. Let me present it to you. And he's like, Tyron, that's going to change the world. And I'm like, cool, Riley, let's go build it out. And then, 20 days later, there's 40 people building in that space. So I'm like, okay, Riley, what's happening there? So in order to understand Riley, we need to go back and understand the relationship he had with his dad. And his dad, from a very young age, taught him everything from politics to mathematics to science to how to fix a car, how to make a good cup of coffee. And he tried to filter out all the bad stuff from the world, but unfortunately his biases kind of fall through like any parent would be. But he also shared the same sentiments that I had, right? Is he noticed that Riley, anytime he didn't know an answer, he would make it up. And not from a bad place, but just he didn't understand how to take something he didn't know and figure it out with the information that he could. So this happened, his dad would tell him, okay, this is the correct answer. Then Riley would have to go back and internalize it and figure out what the right answer was. And this loop went over and over and over again until his dad realized, no, I'm not going to be around forever, so I need to teach him a way to be able to do this on his own. So like any parents, it's like, we don't really want to give our children these powerful things in our hands right here, right? But they are super powerful, they're pros and cons to them. But one of the big things is that you can get information in real time, get access to your Gmail, your Slack, your anything that you're really trying to get information for. And his dad realized that this is a way that he can empower Riley to take the information that he doesn't know and connect it with the information that he does know and provide the answer when he's confident enough to do that. So this completely changed the game, right? This guy became like super powerful, like he could do absolutely anything. He could connect his Gmail, Slack, he was super productive, he could get information, and it basically solved that problem. It solved the problem to the extent that I went up to him and I said, Riley, listen man, you're really good at what you're doing here. Do you mind if I pay you in order to do it on my behalf? I'm going to pay you to have access to my Gmail, I'm going to have you access to my Slack, I'm going to give you access to a bunch of these different tools, because all I care about is the most important thing. I don't want to go around and like filter for this information. You can do it for me. You're so good at doing it. And this went well. This went really well for a really long time. Until something happened, right? And I'll let you read what happened there. And basically, this is where the relationship kind of broke down. And not in a bad way. I just went back to Riley and I said, listen, you need to come to me before you do things like that. I know you're trying, I didn't come from a bad spot. I want you to just come back to me and just figure out when things like that happen, right? And that's basically how the relationship developed. So, why am I telling you this, right? Like, I think you all figured this out. Like, Riley is basically the large language model. And then, the way that Riley interfaces with these tools, you could almost think as MCP as being that phone that he interfaces with these different tools. So that gives him access to all these things that follow a specific specification, but all he needs to do is access through a single device, which is his phone. And then the way that he was providing information and value to me was through an assistant, right? And then the very last part is when he was scammed, it was basically an idea of prompt injection. I don't know how many of you are familiar with with prompt injection. But yeah, okay, so it's basically, it was a very crazy story. I don't know. I think it was Heroku, but you could attach a query parameter to a 404 page and inject your prompt injection into that query parameter, so that when someone was pulling the logs for Heroku using an LLM, they were injected and it was a basic prompt injection. And so these tags are very sophisticated and people are thinking about it all the time. But why am I telling you all of this? Like, this is the problem, right? What we're trying to do with Civic Nexus is we want you guys just to follow building and concentrate on building on your idea. We don't want you to worry about things like security and prompt injection attacks. And we're not there yet. We haven't figured out all the problems, but that's the idea for us to get there. So you guys don't have to worry about authorization to different tools. You don't have to worry about connecting to Slack, your Gmail. You can just focus on your idea and where to get that data from. So yeah, so for example, what we do offer is like managed authentication, token lifestyle storage. You don't want to store your access tokens. We worry about credential security. Also, when your MCPs are, if you're building them, you can deploy them and we'll scale them up with you. And then we manage also the context. I think someone had a conversation about the context overload. We also got techniques on how to solve that as well. And we're constantly looking into solutions on how to do that. So, now is the fun part, right? I'm going to kind of put this down. I am going to, I'll just talk with this right here. I'm going to just kind of make this bigger. So I've got my terminal up here, and I'm going to have 3 in the top right. It's just going to be basically notes for me to remember to make sure I cover everything. And the bottom left is going to be our prototype playground, and then the right is where we're going to basically execute things. But what we're going to build right now is, let me just do this steps, go through this. These are my notes. So my wife came to me the other day and she says, "Fine, listen, you're building and you're talking about all this stuff, but you're not actually building anything. Can you build something for me?" And I was like, yeah, I'm really excited about building like agents and stuff. What is the problem that you're having? And she said, I get all these emails that have all this text where like dates might be on a different website or dates are embedded in images. So I can't copy and paste them and use them, and it becomes a nightmare for me to use it. So I was like, okay, cool. Like, let's see if we can solve that. I don't want to go using like LangGraph or LangGraph. I just want to prototype whether it's correct, right? So if I show you what the email is here, this is the email. So you can see here, this is for one of my daughter's swim meets. And this idea is that the meeting schedule is embedded in this email, but it's not, right? It's you've got to go to this website. And inside that website, you've got to go and find and download the meeting schedule. So if you break this down into what an agent needs to do here, it needs to be able to search my email. It needs to be able to read an email. It needs to look for a link in that email, visit that website, look at the link in that website, download the PDF, parse that PDF, and see whether or not the dates are correct within there. So it needs to be a bunch of different steps. Like if you just told someone like to a normal person, oh, that's super easy to do, right? But thinking about how an element can do that in one shot is quite difficult. So let's try that. Like let's see if the LLM can do that. So the first thing we need to do is go to docs.civic.com. So this is going to tell you how to add, our product is called Nexus there. It's going to tell you how to install Civic Nexus into your Claude Code setup. So all you do is copy this command, you go in there, and you paste it in, and Claude Code will be added to the MCP server. So now that it's got access to MCP server, which I'll show you in a moment, you need to still be able to configure your MCPs that you want to have access to. So if you see here, I've logged in and I've specifically given access to Gmail and Postgres. We're not going to use Postgres, we're just going to use Gmail. So if I start Claude now, we can see the MCPs that I have enabled. And you can see there that Civic is enabled, right? On first time, you need to log in so you can pull in the correct tools into your service. But if I click into here, I can view the tools. And you can see that these are all the different tools that the MCP and that Claude has access to. So let me just exit out of that and go back. So now it's got access to my Gmail, right? So I can say something simple, like how would a user try to find that email? I was like, okay, hey, Riley, please find an email for me that tells me about my daughter's swim schedule. So now hopefully it's going to call that tool, and it's going to go and search and find the information. So you can see here it might not find it because it's combining a bunch of words together. We need to find a specific, I think it's called swimming exactly. I don't want to tell it it's nitro because that's giving it too much information. I just kind of want to gauge how this, okay, so there it used the keyword swimming, which is good, it's going to find it. So it finds that email. Okay, so now it's going to go through the task of actually reading that email. And we'll let that run while it does that. So we didn't tell it that it needs to go visit a website, download the PDF, pass the PDF, and do that, right? So look, it responded and said, okay, this is the schedule, but I'll need to go and pass the PDF and download it and go to that specific link. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that. Can you do that for me? I don't want to do that. Can you do that for me? So now, hopefully it's going to go visit the website because it's got access to web search. It's got access to a bunch of different tools. One of them is web search. And it is going to realize that you see, so these are all the different things that you notice I added in. Like yesterday when I tested it, it actually visited the website and brought the contents in. So now it's going to try to fetch that data and see if it can find a PDF link in there. Okay, so it doesn't require authentication. I actually found the wrong link. I think it needs to use yes. Okay, that's the correct link there. Please, you see, this is a demo, use this link. But the whole point of this is that you're trying to see the discrepancies that are going to happen with the agent, right? Because you want to be able to figure out when you build the workflow, these are the things that are going to happen. So when you're prototyping like this, you realize you've got the whole conversation history as you're developing. You can tell Claude, okay, how can we get around this? How can we build this workflow? So now it's going to go do that. But you're going to notice one thing here, the link isn't embedded in that website. And we're going to go use another MCP tool. Oh, it found it. Okay, that's good. So that worked. And it's going to go find the information and it's going to find the form. Previously, what happened was it loaded that website, and because it wasn't rendering correctly, it wasn't able to find that link. And then I don't know how many of you are familiar with Playwright. Playwright's also a very good MCP server, so it actually opens up the browser. It can search through the browser. It will take a picture of the contents of the browser, and then also of the PDF, read that PDF, and then pass it and do that. Okay. Oh my gosh, you see I got funds too low here. That is not good. Let me just log in again and see if I can check my account. JP, you don't have money for me to send to do the rest of the talk yet. So, okay, I just want to resume that conversation. Let's go back to that one. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to continue right now. For example, of course this had to happen during my demo, there hasn't no funds available. But the idea is that what we can do now is once we've got all that context and we've gone through the flow together, and we've created that agent and improved our concept. So you have all that context that you can do, and you can tell Claude, you can say something like, hey Claude, please take all that information that we've done and put it into a document to show the different flows that the user can go through. And then you can take that flow and then you can use it and prove it as a concept that when you go and you're trying to build something as you're trying to prototype an agent, for example, that you know that it can do that because Claude can do it. It's got all the tools it needs to do, and you can equip your agent with those specific tools to go and do something there. So when it was working, what happened is I was able to get all that information, create a context file, a context MD file, and then one-shot it in this terminal here and said, please exact same query, please go and visit the, please go find my daughter's swim schedule. In a generic manner, it looked at that context.md file and it figured out exactly how to do it in one shot, so I didn't have to go back and forth with the agent. And that's the idea of like how to prototype with the agent that I really wanted to show you. But for me, Claude Code is probably one of the best pieces of software I've used in a really, really long time. I think it's the way that Boris, who's the creator of it, decided to put LLM at the lowest level of the operating system, and you can almost think of it like as a conversational OS. So even if you're not used to it, like just go install it, download it, ask it to move files, sort files for you. So ask it like, where's the space that's missing in your computer. So basically you can talk to it like you're already talking to a computer. But in closing, before I close here, I'd like to say that MCP tools give you a lot of power, and if you want a prototype in Claude Code to see what's possible and get really familiar with how the LLM and the agent can happen. And do it over time, and then take it into a tool of choice and create workflows from there and run evaluations from there. I really wish I could have shown you a full end-to-end, but unfortunately this had to happen right while I'm demoing. It's a demo guide, you know. So Anyway, if you guys got any questions, I'd love to answer them.